Speaking of things that Pat Robertson hates, gay people. So the Human Rights Campaign was one of the biggest supporters of the LGBTQ movement. They just declared states of emergency for LGBTQ Americans, and we're going to look at this real quick. This is CBS New York.
The country's largest LGBTQ plus civil rights group is sounding the alarm tonight, saying their community is in a nationwide state of emergency.
CBS 2's Jessica Moore reports on the laws and boycotts prompting the declaration.
In the middle of what should be a joyous month celebrating Pride, the Human Rights Campaign just issued a first-of-its-kind emergency declaration for the LGBTQ plus community. HRC President Kelly Robinson saying, quote, "The multiplying threats facing millions in our community are not just perceived, they are real, tangible, and dangerous." The HRC pointed to 75 laws in more than a dozen states, specifically targeting LGBTQ plus rights, like those banning drag, gender-affirming care, inclusive education, and those preventing transgender athletes from competing in sports. And while New York is considered LGBTQ plus friendly, according to the HRC, activist Marty Cummings says his community isn't completely safe here either.
You had the people who were murdered from nightclubs. You have Drag Story Hour, where brown boys are showing up pretty violently at a family-friendly event.
Major retailers and brands like Target and Budweiser have lost billions of dollars in profits and stock value and faced massive boycotts over inclusive products and spokespeople. The HRC also issued a guidebook for LGBTQ plus Americans to know their rights and access help and safety resources, including a graph showing...
So... yeah, just a ton of that. We covered that last time about the businesses. We don't know how much that is because they're being boycotted. That's, it could be, could not be. We don't know for sure. But yeah, just, you think of it as, that's a lot of bills coming out, a lot of anti-LGBT stuff. I mean, it's just going backwards.
Yeah. This is going backwards, and really, not to overly simplify, but the people that are so against the gay and lesbian community are not really impacted by it. Like, I don't understand why you're going to be railing so hard against something that really doesn't impact you. If you are not identifying as any part of the community,
mm-hmm.
You don't have to interact with the community much, except just like, you walk by somebody at a grocery store, but you really don't have to do anything. So it's just hard to even understand the point.
Well, it's a culture war issue. So the idea is we need to rile up for conservatives, any sort of semi-fascist group. You got to rile up your base, but you got to give them something to hate. You got to give them an enemy, right? And it's ideal if the enemy is somebody who's A, weaker than you, and B, already it seems a little taboo to the kind of people you're talking to, right? Because a lot of these people don't know a lot of openly gay people. A lot of these people have never met a trans person, right? And for them, it's this, they're told all this crap like, oh yeah, really, they're all pedophiles. There's an agenda in the, like, for teachers, right? This is the big thing with school boards. There's an agenda in the school to turn your kid gay or turn your kid trans.
Which the school has literally no reason to care about any of that.
No. Well, and part of what that is they've seen, okay, well, just the number of people who are out as gay and trans has drastically gone up, especially over the last decade, right? And right. So they're thinking that's because you guys are, not you guys, the gay people or the trans people are creating all these new...
Right. Really, nothing is being created. It's just that schools and various other public places have presented themselves as safe spaces for people to be able to come out of the shadows and into the light.
Yeah.
It's not creating anything. It's just allowing something to be out in the open that was never allowed to be before.
Yeah, it's like when we stopped forcing everybody to be right-handed, more people reported being left-handed.
Right.
And then it flattened out after a while. It wasn't because we were creating more left-handed people. It's because now they were free to be left-handed. They didn't have to hide in the shadows. They didn't have to be scared. But that's part of what this movement is to try and scare them back into the shadows. And that's, that's what that whole push is. There's a lot of push to that. You got to remember too, this stuff all goes back a while. Like, I did some extra research into this, and I didn't know how deep we wanted to go. I wasn't going to go too deep, but I was kind of interested in, like, I went back and I didn't know this, that homosexuality was considered a psychological illness until 1972. And then they backed off that. And then you're reading studies in, like, the 80s, and they're basically saying that, your child is 12 times more likely to be sexually assaulted by a homosexual. And then what ended up happening was those got revised in the 90s going, well, no, it's a pedophile, which is different from a homosexual. They're very different things, right? A homosexual is only attracted to other adults that are homosexuals like them, right? They're the same sex as they are. Homosexuals are not attracted to children. Pedophiles are attracted to children.
These are completely separate things.
Completely separate things. And you ever notice how most pedophiles are conservative? And I don't think that's because they want to be. I think that's because those kids tend to be the most naive. They don't have sex ed training. They don't know that they're being taken advantage of or groomed. That's this whole, like, so all this push is really just to try and push these people back in the closet. And it's, and it's not going to work. Not at this point.
No.
Especially
you
since
can't expect people to go backwards. You really can't.
Well, not just that. You can, but here's the deal: is not in the age of social media, right? Not in this age where you turn on TV and there are gay people on TV, gay characters on TV all the time, right? You turn on TV, you see more Asian people, you see more Black people. It's not like when you watched in the 90s, you watch Friends, right? And I think they only ever had one Black person on Friends. It's like, okay, they can get a monkey, but they can't find a Black person in New York.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah, that show was, I don't think it meant to be racist, but that's what it was like back then. It was all white people. Now it's very different. And I think they're upset about it. In Disney, you have the Little Mermaid is a Black woman. People were all upset about that. My favorite bit about that was people were bitching about, well, she couldn't be Black because the pigmentation of her skin, because she'd be too deep under the water to get any sunlight, so she'd have to be white. And I'm like, that's what's throwing you? Not the fact that she's half human, half fish? That's not throwing you? It's her skin color that's throwing you? We're already in the realm of fantasy, man. Who gives a shit what skin color she has?
Yeah, like we're worried about the fact behind skin pigmentation underwater, but we're just gonna overlook the half human, half
fish
thing.
When the magical squid or what was it, Ursula, the octopus lady who gives her legs with magic. Yeah, we're already in that realm, and you're thrown by the fuck. Jesus. She talks to a flounder. Oh gosh. All right.